So this week on the podcast, on the Style Stories podcast, I'm absolutely delighted to have Shakaila Forbes-Bell, who wrote this book, Big Dress Energy. And I'm going to ask her all about that in a second. I love this book. It's so fascinating. It's all about fashion psychology and the connection between how you feel, what you wear. I'm going to fumble my words and not get it right. So welcome, Shakaila. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hi, thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
And also, I just want you to have if you could just quickly introduce yourself and just explain how you got into fashion psychology in the first place, and what led you to write this book, Big Dress Energy.
Yeah, so from a young age, I've always been interested in fashion, but when it comes to academia, like I excelled in psychology. I actually had a really amazing teacher. And I remember one time in my exam, I got like 98 out of 100. Like I was just doing so well. It's something that I just couldn't ignore, even though at the same time I was scouting out schools like St. Martin's for like doing design. It just seemed like psychology was the natural choice. And I was always enthralled by studies and looking into why people thought the way they did and how people act completely differently in different circumstances than what they would assume, and implicit biases and all of that stuff. So I decided to pursue psychology and keep fashion more as a hobby. But throughout my psychology undergraduate degree, I was just so invested in social psychology. I loved it. I loved looking at group dynamics and different kind of aesthetic choices and how that impacts people, and looking at just how people appear in different rooms and how that impacts nonverbal communication. And in the third year of my degree actually was the first time we had the Black Lives Matter movement, and it was spurred on by a young man called Trayvon Martin, and sadly he was murdered in a very racially motivated crime. And a lot of American pundits said that, oh, if he wasn't wearing a hoodie, then he wouldn't be seen as threatening. But at the same time, we had this rise of these tech bros in Silicon Valley, white men being hailed for wearing hoodies in the office and seen as, really throwing away old-fashioned aesthetics in the workplace. And also we had luxury markets really embracing athleisure. So I was really impassioned to look at the intersection between race, clothing, and impression formation in general. Why on one body is a hoodie seen as a symbol of fear, and another it's seen as, a symbol of like power. And I just wanted to investigate that further. And I really loved that project. I called it the Hoodie Project. My supervisor was so supportive as well. And I said, there's something to this. There's more to this. And I was having a bit of an existential crisis, thinking about what the hell am I going to do after my degree? I didn't want to be a clinical psychologist. I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to just talk more about this thing like fashion psychology, which I thought I had stumbled on, not realizing it's about 50, 60 years old. And there's studies like that have looked into this impact. And I came across the master's program, Psychology for Fashion Professionals. And I loved it. And I managed to work with a style psychologist, Kate Nightingale. She gave me one of my first internships. And I realized that there was so much research. It was just kept in these academic papers that were very difficult to access. Sometimes I couldn't even access them. They were very hard to digest as well. So I started a blog, which I thought was just, just for a bit of fun. And I put all of the research I found there, about how people's different styles of dress and how people interpret it differently, and of course about inclusive cognition, which is like the bread and butter of fashion psychology, and all of these different studies. And it just kept getting noticed more and more by journalists, by press, and I got asked lots of questions, and things really just snowballed from there. And then one day an agent slid into my DMs and said, have you ever thought about writing a book? She said I had all the material there, my blog already, and it's definitely wasn't something I thought about at the time, but I think it just made sense because my goal has always been to make fashion psychology insights and research accessible, and I'm hoping that that's what I was able to achieve with Big Dress Energy.
Oh my God, it's amazing. I mean, just what you're saying here about the Hoodie Project, that is fascinating. It's because it's a human thing. So the non-verbal communication, we make decisions in I think you said 0.10 of a second, isn't it? 10th of a second. Am I safe? it's basically a survival thing, you know. It's like, you know, seeing someone in a hoodie has two completely different connotations, like you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, the tech guy, what's his name, Mark Zuckerberg, it's seen as sort of an arrogant thing. I've made it, I don't need to dress up, I don't need to make an effort with what I wear. And then that guy that you've mentioned as well, you know, the fear that goes, because that's bias, isn't it? And it's bias.
Yeah, it's racial bias as well. But, you know, I just think it's so incredibly interesting how the different interpretations we have of clothing. And then after his murder, then we had the Million Hoodie March, and, you know, how clothes then can as well be used as symbols of power. I think historically, even looking at women like burning bras, and that was significant in the feminist movement. During the 70s, you had loads of slogan t-shirts as well, like being like anti-war. And it's just, I think clothes are just so powerful. And it just hurts me when people think about clothes purely in terms of aesthetics. Because I always say, like, no matter if you work in Vogue magazine and in the tip-top of fashion industry, or if you work in construction or work in an office, you know, by the simple act of getting dressed every day, you've made a decision. You know, it's saying something about you, it's having an unconscious impact on the way you're thinking, the way you're acting. And of course, people are making judgments about your personality, about your character, about who you are based on how you appear. So why not make sure that you're empowered with all of the knowledge and all of the insights about your clothes to use them as a tool, so to make sure that you are expressing yourself in the most authentic way possible.
Yeah, use your clothes as a tool. This is something that I talk about all the time on this podcast. And before lockdown, I did this thing called the Style Council with a life coach, Teresa Kleisner, and we used to talk to people about the connection between fashion and the psychology side of it. And something we touched on during that is enclothed cognition. So what exactly is enclothed cognition?
So essentially, enclothed cognition is proving the existence of the mind-clothes connection. So to kind of test this, two psychologists, Adam Helitsky in, I think it was 2012, they got a group of participants together, split them in half, but made all of them wear a white coat, and told one group that their white coat was a doctor's lab coat, and the other half that their coat was a painter's smock. And then they asked them to engage in a series of tests that kind of measured their attention to detail and their focus. And lo and behold, participants who were told that they were wearing the doctor's coat outperformed the other group. And that just goes to show that people can embody the meanings that they ascribe to certain clothes. You associate doctors with being, you know, very meticulous, being focused. So when you wear things that you associate with that person or that trait, you embody them. Right. So that just goes to show in your everyday life, if you're going to an office in a big presentation, you need to wear clothes that you associate with confidence, that you associate with intelligence. If you are going on a first date, you need to wear clothes that you associate with lust and allure and arousal. If you are, I don't know, just going to in the gym, you want to wear clothes that you associate with fitness, with activity, you know, things that get you going. It just goes to show that, you know, you really need to think of the meanings that you ascribe to clothes, the universal meanings as well as the personal meanings, you know, because my symbol or my image of power and that power aesthetic could be totally different from yours, right? So if I'm not considering my personal associations when I wear these outfits, I'm not going to get that mind close connections, you know, I'm not going to get that power. So it's all about just really taking your time to look at your clothes and think about how you understand them, how you understand the language of your clothes, and then again, how when you wear them, you can embody that to the best of your ability to achieve whatever you hope to achieve in that day.
Yeah, so we've talked about both things. You know, looking at people and making assumptions about them, and then how you can turn it on inside yourself and use clothes as a tool to send messages and to embody an image that you want to project. I mean, that's how powerful it is. And that I love that story about the signs, you know, people wearing the coat and saying that's a doctor's coat, just kind of stepped up into that role, you know, and that's what it does. But is that what big dress energy is it what is big dress energy?
I always think that big dress energy is about understanding the power of your clothes, you know, the power to change the way you think and act, like, and even talk. You know, there's studies that said that when people are more formally dressed, they use more formal vocabulary to describe themselves versus when they're more casually dressed, they use more casual dressing. So big dress energy is understanding the power of your clothes and understanding the meanings and the value that you ascribe to your clothes and utilizing them in the best possible possible way. So understanding that if you want to feel a certain way, you can use your clothes to represent that. If you want to think and act a certain way, you can use your clothes to reflect that. If you feel a certain way about your body image, your clothes can have an impact on that relationship that you have. If you feel like you want to connect with a past self, or use it as a way to use clothes as a way to go through difficult times, you know that that's possible. You know the power of different colors and their meanings and how to use that in a specific way. It's all about, Big Just Energy is all about absorbing the power and knowledge that your clothes can provide you and using it just to the best of your ability to achieve whatever you want to.
And understanding why you get dressed a certain way. I mean, so none of this is really presented like this to us, like, in like fashion magazines and things like that. It's like how to dress like a French woman.
Oh, yeah.
And also the thing that really, I talk about this on the podcast a lot. Anyone who's a regular listener will say, stop banging on about it. But basically, I talk about the one size fits all capsule wardrobe that we get fed and have been fed for years. So everyone needs a white shirt. Everyone needs a trench coat, a pair of loafers. There's like 5 things on this list that apparently we all need.
Yeah.
I don't wear any of those things. I think loafers are really ugly.
Yeah.
Really hate plain white shirts. To me, that is boring. But it's like, this is what the kind of thing that we're fed, but really you've got to find your own personal style, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I always say, like, I want to make it clear, I'm not a stylist, like that's not my area of expertise, but I do believe that if you look at the research and if you just take a moment just to think about how you're feeling, I think if you absorb Big Just Energy, then that would kind of do away with the whole concept of having a signature style and a capsule wardrobe, because your clothes should be as varied and as meaningful and as different as you are, and as you evolve, you have different tastes, you have different interests. And I do feel like your wardrobe should evolve with you, or it should allow you to explore all of the different aspects of your character. Sometimes when I'm giving a speech or a presentation and, I'm very serious and very astute and I have clothes that reflect that. But when I'm going out, like every day with my family or my friends, I want to be bold, I especially want to be super comfortable, might be a bit wacky. Like, I have clothes that allow me to reflect that as well. And I feel like your wardrobe should allow you to jump between those different selves and those different aspects of your identity. I think even the saying wearing different hats, it's a comment on the way that we can use clothes to express these different parts of us. So having a staple kind of minimal wardrobe, extremely minimal wardrobe, it doesn't really allow you the space to do that, and it doesn't allow you the space to have fun as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm not a classic dresser anyway. I'm not drawn to those sorts of clothes. And all those guides are just all about being classic.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's one of the things that really drives me mad, Shakaila. I just think, and people get confused because they're like, right, I should have that in my wardrobe. Not, it's that feeling of how you should dress, because that's how everyone says you should, but actually you haven't explored, your personal style. And like you say, different. So when you're at work, you're playing a role. It's kind of, you can use clothes like a costume almost to step into that role, but then have fun out. It's, clothes bring joy, right? That's
100%. Yeah.
It's one of the more joyful parts of life. I mean, I probably shop a bit too much, and I want to talk a bit about wearapy. Have I said that right? Wearapy.
Yes, therapy.
Because retail therapy is a thing.
Yeah.
But that can be dangerous as well, because you can then, I have to rein myself in. I'm a magpie, so I'm like the next new thing. Get carried away with that, and that can, the thrill of getting something new.
Exactly.
Can be quite dangerous. We'll talk about wearapy in a minute, but I just wanted to say as well that our style is influenced, our personal style, by so many different factors. So where we live, where we grew up, people like style icons. Do you have any style icons, do you think, who have influenced your style? Are you very...
Oh, of course I do. I'm always inspired. I'm inspired by so many people I see on Instagram. Like, I love that about social media. I mean, of course it has its trappings, but I love the fact that I'm able to use the algorithm in a way to kind of curate like images of styles that I'm inspired by. I love like Tracy Ellis Ross. I love her aesthetic there. I love the way like Doja Cat, you never know what you're going to get with her. Like one day she's going to look very like feminine and the other day she looks very androgynous.
Oh, that's interesting.
I love SZA as well. I love the way she embraces kind of more comfort, kind of cool dressing, but in a way that still brings a lot of like allure to it too. There's so many people that I follow on social media that I'm obsessed with and I get inspired by, but it's also because of the way that people present themselves as well. Like I think about unclothed cognition, like just on a deeper level, like as much as the aesthetics look great, I find that I also like it because these outfits, because I like the person that's wearing them and I like what they stand for and I like the things that they talk about and I like what they represent. And when I am inspired by their styles, I feel like I'm embracing and inspired by the positive traits that I love about these people as well. So it's just good on two levels, you know, just the aesthetic level and the psychological level too.
Yeah, because it's an attraction of sorts, isn't it? And we sort of, you know, we are attracted to people who, when I see someone with really good style, I think I want to be friends with that person because
exactly.
You know, they obviously, they know, to me it just means you know yourself, you're confident in yourself. It gives such a strong impression. I think you've talked about it a bit in the book. It's the halo effect. So that's when, if you look well put together and all of these things and send these certain messages, everything else about you is assumed immediately to be positive.
100%.
Which is another just example of how clothes can totally just transform you and how you're perceived and all those kinds of things as well. It can also affect your mood too. You can use clothes to lift you up, can't you? I mean, I do that all the time.
Yeah, I think people do that unconsciously as well in their day-to-day lives. You know, people always know about the act of like look good, feel good. Like I think people do actively try to do that, but with Big Just Energy, I'm trying to encourage people to go beyond that. You know, sometimes we might just be not feeling great and we can use our clothes almost like as a tool for comfort as well, to make us feel a bit better, or to lift our mood, or to just honor the mood that we're in. Like I know people sometimes wear, I call them socially distanced outfits. Like if I'm wearing my big headphones, my sunglasses, my oversized coat, which I often wear when I'm going to pick up my niece and nephew from school, it's like, please, I don't talk to me. Like I'm not in a talking mood, right? And people get that. Like people think they don't, but we're all like our mini fashion psychologists as well. Like we pick up cues from the way people present themselves. So you should be able as well to understand wearapy and use your clothes to honor or shift or enhance your mood.
I would say as well, don't dress, I mean, I've got this saying that I say, don't dress badly just because everyone else does. But I went to a festival quite recently near here, Dulwich. I'm in South East London, and it was Dulwich, and it was a festival. So to me, it's a festival. Get dressed up, put some, wear something really quite glamorous, something colourful. Everyone there looked like they'd just finished the gardening, and I was really disappointed. And I just thought, because people sort of, they dress to fit in as well, don't they? And I think that's a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame, but as humans, we are social creatures. We have an ingrained desire to belong and to connect with other people, and sometimes we use our clothes to do that, and we kind of reflect what's around us because it's easier to kind of go along with the crowd, and it satisfies that desire to belong. So it makes sense why people do start dressing similarly, but that's not to say that you shouldn't also satisfy another desire that you have, which is to stand out and to be unique and to use clothes to represent your personal point of view and your self-concept. So the way you think you are, the person that you think you are, and use your clothes to express that. But it's all about balancing competing desires. Like I would never say, oh, like stop wearing that, like everyone's wearing that, it's boring, like do something different. And I won't say, oh, that's too loud, that's too different, because I really understand that the way you dress and the way you show up in the world is such a uniquely personal experience. And people should start to look at it like that. And then I think they'll be able to see the value in it and get more positive value out of it as well.
And is this what wearapy is? You mentioned wearapy in the book.
Yes. Yeah. So wearapy is essentially, it's kind of like I say it's linked to enclothed cognition. So whereas enclothed cognition looks at the impact of clothes on the way you think and act, therapy is about the impact of clothes on the way you feel. So again, it's about like the dopamine dressing, or like I said, the socially distanced outfits when you're feeling bad, or when you kind of wear those cultural outfits and how they speak to a part of your identity and how that can make you feel good. It's just about understanding all of the different ways that clothes can, bring you confidence, even nostalgic dressing as well. So I talk about when I was going through grief, a hard time, lost my sister, and I used her clothes as a way to almost be a physical representation of my internal experience of grief. And it allowed me to connect more with the feelings that I'd been suppressing for so long. And it started to make me realize that clothes can be what psychologists call transitional objects. And transitional objects are mostly talked about in terms of children, when they have like their blankies or their teddy bear that they go to sleep with every night. But I think clothes can be transitional objects for adults as well. Like when I wear clothes that remind me of my sister, or her clothes, or things that I bought when I was with her, it does bring me a sense of comfort. It feels like she's a part of me is with her, and I'm actually having a physical representation of that relationship. And it just makes me feel good. And I think if we all start thinking about clothes in that deeper level, then it will be so powerful. And it can be something that is, as much as we need things like, like therapy and like community and like being mindful and meditation and all of these things, clothes can be another addition to that. And it can help us through these difficult stages of our lives. And it will stop us thinking about clothes as something frivolous, something that's throwaway. And I think that's a step that's also missing when we talk about this bigger conversation about sustainability. We need to change the way we think about clothing initially, and then we can start actually tackling these bigger issues.
Yeah, because a lot of people feel that, paying attention to clothes is frivolous.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are serious, especially in politics, shouldn't be seen to be dressing in nice clothes and enjoying that side of life. But it's just the opposite of frivolous. And like you've just explained, feeling closer to your sister with her clothes,
mm-hmm.
because your clothes are you.
Yeah,
it's the way you can get close to her.
mm-hmm.
It is our identity, isn't it?
Yeah, I always say that people don't realize the value of things and possessions like clothes until someone's passed, because that is something that was important to them. It represents them. It represents their frame of mind at a specific time, their tastes at a specific time, their likes and dislikes, what they were into, and the people and the external things that were influencing them. It says so much about them, as do our own wardrobes. So, we need to remember that, and we should honor that whilst we are still around and have the ability to experience all of the, the good things that clothes can give us.
Yeah, totally. I just wanted to ask to finish about your style. Like, how would you describe it? I've put you on the spot here.
Oh my God.
I've put you on the spot, but I like to do a 3-word description of my style, because I think that's really helpful. So mine is feminine, relaxed with edge. So I'm a really relaxed dresser. I can't bear feeling trussed up. I personally would never wear a suit, but I love other people in suits.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it's not for me.
Yeah.
So because I don't like classic clothes, I have got a shirt on today, but it's sort of got a retro print and it's satin.
Yeah.
It's satin. Yeah. So that's, for me, that suits my style. But if you had 3 words, have I totally put you on the spot? How would you describe your style?
I think it will be comfortable.
Yeah.
And then it'll be conversation starter.
Oh, nice.
I haven't worn, this is maybe TMI, I haven't worn an underwear bra, and I don't know, I don't think since the pandemic. I think they're just evil and they cause me back pain, and I just hate it. So if I have to wear an underwear bra with whatever I'm wearing, like it's just gone. Like, I've realized no. And I feel like I can be very shy at times and be very self-conscious. So I like to wear clothes that just get a bit of like a head turn. And this happened to me so many times. Like, I'll be in a room and I'll be feeling overwhelmed. Someone say, "Oh, I love your earrings." Oh, I really like your top. And that gives me I'm like, "Oh, yes, okay." The burden to start the conversation has been taken off of me. I now feel more comfortable to be open, and then we can chat. So I love that. I like wearing things that, allow me to speak without actually having to speak.
Oh, I love that. And do you think that you dress in a very sort of out there way, like colourful? Are you quite bold with your
I do like to be quite
choices?
colorful, and then if I'm
Yeah,
being muted, then I'll go like super in on the accessories as well. I love a full
right.
face of makeup. I just think my clothes are a way for me to be creative, and creativity has so many positive psychological benefits as well. And I do take my time when I'm getting dressed. I'll think about it, what I'm planning to wear a couple of days before, and then getting dressed, I take my time. Like, I know some people don't have that ability to take their time, but if you do ever find that time to carve out for yourself to curate this aesthetic, it's almost like, yeah, you're having a hand in creating like a work of art. I really think people should start seeing themselves as that, like a blank canvas, and you use your aesthetics to kind of build on that, and then you become like, yeah, the artist of your own like everyday aesthetic. And I just think that's so powerful.
Express yourself and have fun with it. And just, it doesn't mean buying millions of clothes.
No, it definitely does not mean that. Like,
No.
when we talk about shopping, and I always say, like, think about how much wear you're going to get out of it. Is this something that is going to carry you through different stages of your life? Do you see the best version of yourself wearing this outfit? Do you think of different like occasions or different ways you can restyle it and make it something new? You need to be able to engage in future thinking when you're shopping, to make sure that you're not just buying a ton of things and end up saying, oh, I have nothing to wear, which we know is such a common phrase. I'm sure you hear that a lot of the times from people who have full wardrobes.
Yeah, exactly. So it just basically makes sense to take time to step back, think about how you want to dress. Just take a little bit of time to think about it. If you're not happy with your wardrobe, it's one of the things that we can control. It's something in life that we can change and we can improve and we can elevate. So it's just a brilliant thing, and it's a joyful thing. Thank you so much for joining me today. Do read this book, Big Dress Energy, Shakaila Forbes-Bell. It's absolutely fascinating, the psychology behind how we get dressed. I love it, couldn't put it down. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So fun talking to you. Thanks.
Thank you.